Hey everyone, welcome to Hampton Roads Real Estate Network. Today I am super excited because we're going to be talking about VA loans, and we have three things that a lot of people don't really know how they can use their VA loan and the advantages that it conveys to veteran home buyers. So if you are a veteran or an active duty member of any service, then today's episode is definitely for you. And I am excited because I'm joined with my good friend, Deanna Ashton. She is a local loan officer with AFN Mortgage, and she is also a military spouse herself. So she has a really deep knowledge with VA loans. And so I'm really excited for her to be on here. So Deanna, thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me. I am really excited to talk about these options that people have with VA loans and how we can best help our veteran clients.
Awesome. One side note, can you believe it's October already?
I know time has flown. Doesn't feel like October outside quite yet, though. So maybe that's
No.
why it still feels like summer here.
It's still pretty warm out. Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and just dive right into it. The first topic that we're going to cover with Deanna is the VA loan actually doesn't have a minimum credit score. So many people actually don't realize that this is a thing with VA loans. So why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about how that gives an advantage to VA homebuyers?
So each set of loans has its own set of guidelines. And with the VA loan, there is no minimum credit score required. I do want to let people know, though, that most lenders have what they call an overlay, which means that although the VA may not require a certain credit score, that lender may require a certain credit scores. But this really provides a lot of flexibility to people. For example, if you're doing a full financing program similar to VA where there's no down payment like USDA or most state programs, here we have the Virginia Housing Program, you're going to have a 640 or a 620, and there are no exceptions to that. So it doesn't matter how much money you have saved or how much income you have to have that credit score. So there's a lot more flexibility for VA buyers. A lot of people who are younger, and maybe the issue is that they just don't have a lot of credit yet. And it's not necessarily that they have bad credit. They just don't have enough good credit yet. This may give them an opportunity to purchase a home, whereas they might not qualify with other programs.
Okay. So it sounds like the lack of a minimum score with VA loans allows the lender to be as flexible as they're willing to be, essentially. So with those home buyers that don't have that perfect credit score, or especially, I think that's a great point, new home buyers who might not have, who are still young and maybe they haven't built up a lot of credit, or their credit score isn't to a certain level yet. It gives the lender themselves a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah, definitely. And we've found now that, the average home buyer for VA buyers is usually younger than first-time home buyers across the board. And I think part of the reason is because they are able to get into home ownership a little bit more easily because of the things that we're talking about here today.
Okay, great. Anything else that you want to say as far as credit score goes?
So a lot of people will say that, although that we don't have a minimum credit score, that it's really important to still work on your credit and have a higher score because that's what's going to affect your interest rate and that will affect your monthly payment. So there are a lot of things that people can do. Let's say someone's watching right now, maybe they want to buy in 6 months to a year. They can focus on making sure that they're making all their minimum credit payments on time. They can make sure that they don't have any late payments. They can avoid opening new credit. Definitely avoid co-signing for anyone's credit, because even if you co-sign for a car, for example, for someone and that person's making those payments, it's still going to show up for us on your credit report. And there are a lot of ways that you can monitor your credit. And of course, we always want people to come to us earlier rather than later to kind of get an idea for getting that game plan set.
Right. Yeah. So don't take on anyone else's debt. I think that's a good takeaway there.
Because, you just maybe it's not something that you want to do right now. But what if the situation changes in 6 months to a year when you do want to buy a house? It's best to kind of keep your debts as low as possible.
Right. Yeah. Really good points about planning ahead, because a lot of people don't, as a real estate agent, I talk to a lot of people at the very beginning. For some reason, they tend to talk to us first, which of
Yes.
course, I think, in my opinion, I think that they should be talking to loan officers first, right? But they start looking at houses and they want to, they're thinking about buying, but it's like, hey, there might be some things that we need to work on first. And, your credit score is obviously one of those things. So really good points. Thanks for bringing that up. So let's go ahead and move on to point number 2 here. So there's no DTI maximum with VA loans. So this is a really big deal. Can you explain what DTI is and why not having a cap on that is really important for veterans?
Sure. So your DTI is your debt to income ratio. So when we pull your credit report, if you have credit cards, student loans, car payments, any of that kind of stuff, recurring debts, those are going to show up in that category. And then we're going to go ahead and look at your income. So whether that's LES because you're still active duty, or retirement, civilian pay, disability, any regular monthly income that you get and whoever else is on the loan with you would be included in that income category. Most loans, just like with credit score, most loan programs have a cutoff for their debt to income ratio. For example, Virginia Housing or other down payment assistance programs that we offer cut off at 50%. And you cannot get an approval higher regardless of credit score and other factors. Whereas with the VA loan, you don't have to put the down payment down and you still are able to have a little bit of flexibility with that. So we've seen approvals as far as high as 65% for debt to income ratios because the VA is looking at the entire picture. And of course, there is that stability with the income. And I think that is recognized when you're using the VA program.
Wow, that's really incredible because, today everybody's got something like student loan debts, super common. Obviously, I still have student loan debts that I'm paying off. Most people have car payments, and then, all kinds of stuff can pop up too. So having that higher DTI percentage, I think that is huge. How does this flexibility impact their home buying power though?
Well, what we do when we are looking at your entire picture, credit score, debt to income ratio, we're going to put your file through an automated underwriting system basically shows us the likelihood of approval, and they basically look at your ability to repay. So a lot of times if you have that stable income, credit looks good, you can actually get pre-approved for more because you can go a bit higher on your debt to income ratio than you would be with other programs, even if you qualify for, a conventional program or, Virginia housing program. So a lot of people may be surprised that they can get pre-approved for more than what they thought they could. And that's a huge advantage. Even if they don't want to go to that top of their budget, they have a little bit of a flexibility there.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Now, obviously, you might not want to go all the way up to your maximum, but it sounds like, it gives them more options versus other programs like a conventional loan.
Right, because you don't have to be stuck with that exact percentage as long as we're able to get that approval status. So I always tell people, there's no harm in getting started and seeing what you can get pre-approved for because, the VA loan offers so many benefits that a lot of times people who wouldn't think that they could get approved are. And then it opens up a whole window of opportunity for them.
Yeah, and I'm thinking too that like if you have a little bit of wiggle room above that 50% mark, maybe that perfect house in that perfect location comes up and it's a little bit higher than maybe, you could have gone with a conventional loan, but because you have that extra room at the top of the DTI, then maybe you could qualify for that house that would have been out of reach with another program.
Right. And a lot of what we do, and this is just how I run my business, is a lot of times when I'm working with a buyer, I'm also focusing on monthly payment that they're comfortable with. So, it's not just all about the pre-approval amount. We look at the monthly payment too. So we always make sure that they're comfortable with everything before they're even moving forward and signing a contract. But having those options is great, especially when you come into an area like here where it can be there's a lot of military presence. There's people moving in and out all the time. There's so many different areas with different price points. So it's nice to have that flexibility for our service members that are here.
Yeah, that's so true. So we talked a little bit about but you don't want to go up too high because you want to keep it manageable, because you obviously don't want to enter into a purchase that down the road is going to be problematic for you. What are some of the strategies that you could use to lower your debt to income ratio and help you get pre-approved?
So you definitely want to make sure that, like you said, we're not taking on any new debt, because that's automatically going to increase your debts. If there are
Right.
things that you can pay off, you can definitely do that as well, so that those things are not on your credit report. A lot of people talk about student loan debt. You can do income-based repayment plans and possibly get that payment lower. So there are all sorts of things that you can do to kind of give yourself a little bit more flexibility. And we always do a lot of planning, when you're in the military, and especially for people who are PCSing and they're coming from a different area, they may be worrying about gas and hotels and food out and all these other things. So we're going to make sure that you're comfortable with the amount of money you may have to bring to closing, with the monthly payment, because there are always going to be some extra costs that are incurred. I mean, from my personal experience, that has happened every single move. Or maybe the house wasn't ready for us to move in and we needed to stay in a hotel another night. Or maybe we got there and there are things that we didn't think we needed, but we needed right away. For example, we moved places where the rentals don't, even as a rental, they don't even have refrigerators. So it's like, well, you definitely have to buy that as soon as you get to where you're going. So we really try to prepare you for the entire picture, the monthly payment, what you're going to have to bring to closing, and make sure that you're well prepared.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point, because cost of living is very different in different areas of the country. Places like maybe California, New York, those places that, obviously are well known for being expensive, but it might be an increase if you're coming actually from some different places in the country, like maybe like some areas of South Carolina, Alabama, that have really low cost of living. So that is definitely a good point to keep in mind. Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into the last point here. There are actually no reserve requirements required for VA loans. So talk a little bit about what reserves are and what that means as far as benefit to the veteran.
Sure. So reserves are basically the amount of money that you have left after you pay the out-of-pocket costs for your loan. So you're going to have, even though the loan doesn't require a down payment, there are always going to be some closing costs associated with the loan. And oftentimes when you're doing programs that do not require a down payment, like the VA loan, they do want to see that you have 2 months reserves, which basically means 2 months of the mortgage. So if your mortgage is $2,500, they want to see $5,000 after closing costs, etc., have been paid. VA loans look at different factors, and you do not have to have reserves to have an approval. Although I still would recommend to people, it's great to have money saved up, because nobody wants to go into a house and then, there may be things that they need, like we talked about. There may be something that could be bought. And of course, there's always going to be some costs associated with that. So I wouldn't recommend that you bucket yourself so you have no money left just because you can't get the approval. We still want to make sure that you have a little bit of cushion, because our goal is to make sure that you're comfortable, and of course that you're happy with, the fact that you purchased a home, and that it's a positive thing for your financial stability and everything. But the good thing is that you don't have to have a full-term money saved up if you're able to get approved.
Right. So yeah, that is a huge benefit for veterans for sure. And totally agree with you. I mean, you don't want to buy a house with no money, right? Because there's expenses that are, as a homeowner myself, things come up, right? So, and I think it's a really good point that you brought up, that you don't want your first home purchase, or any home purchase, honestly, but especially your first one, to be a bad experience, because it can kind of ruin home ownership for a lot of people. So you definitely want to be careful when you're using some of these benefits of the VA loan. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should go all the way to the maximum, right?
Right. And that, we always try to keep ourselves, communicating with our buyers, and we're communicating with agents like you and letting you know this is what they're pre-approved for, but this is what they're really comfortable with. And so we make sure that they have a really good idea of the whole picture,
Yeah.
before they end up going into homeownership, because it isn't going to be, I mean, for most people, that's the biggest purchase they'll ever make. So it's an
For
important
sure.
stat. And like I said, we want this so that people can have that financial stability, and the advantage of homeownership can't really get that if you go completely over budget and end up finding yourself in a situation where you can't pay the mortgage.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that is kind of a good point for all three of these things. Like, they are very advantageous for home buyers using VA loans, but you do want to be careful of how you use them. And you don't want to overuse them, because you want to have a good experience. You want to make a good purchase, and you want your home to be something that you enjoy, not a burden, right?
Definitely. And it's never too early to plan, to talk with a lender, get an idea for how much money would I need to save for closing costs. What could I get pre-approved for now? How can I improve my credits? And to also talk to a realtor and get an idea of what they're seeing in the market, especially if there's specific areas that you are looking at. So,
Yeah.
it all comes down to preparation and basically making the benefit work for you.
Yeah. I always like to say that you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your preparation, right? And buying a home to me is no different. And
Yeah.
it's super important to do that. And working with a loan officer first is something that I would always recommend. And so I'm always happy to send people to the loan officer as soon as possible. Like you said, you can never really prepare enough or ahead of time enough. So I think that really kind of wraps it up for today. Thanks everyone for joining us. And if you stayed in the video, I thank you for doing so. And you know how to reach me. My link and stuff will be in the description if you want to schedule a discovery call with me and talk a little bit about buying homes here in the Hampton Roads area. And I'm also going to link all of the contact information for Deanna. I highly recommend talking to a loan officer. So if you want to speak with her, her contact info will also be in the link. Deanna, do you have anything you want to say before we jump off here?
No, just want to thank you for the opportunity, and just, continue to encourage people that it may be possible for you to purchase a home and you don't have to wait until you're in your final destination, or you're out of the military, or you're retired to purchase a home. Maybe something that could be a great advantage to you right now, and you never know until you ask.
Absolutely. All right. That's it for today. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you guys out there.